In this video, we'll talk about project design for business rule development. We'll start with some example applications of business rules, and then we'll talk about how understanding the goals of those business rules can help you in project design. Some example applications include targeting prospects with the right offer. In account originations, you may have decisions such as who to accept versus reject, what line or pricing, other terms that you might want to offer them. Once the account's on the books, you'll need to do things like manage credit line, assess fraud, or otherwise determine whether or not to approve a transaction and authorization. And if the account goes delinquent, what's the most appropriate collection action to effectively collect the payment on the account. You'll want to design a data set with the business goals in mind, so it's important to know what those are up front. Those goals will be incorporated into variables on the data set. So for example, it might be a target variable or outcome that you're using to actually segment the population, or it may just be a performance metric, a KPI, key performance indicator, that you want to use to measure the results. In addition to performance outcomes, you'll want to understand what are the available data sources that you might use at the time of decision. Some additional considerations would be, what are the regulatory requirements and what variables do you need on the data set to establish those? What are the policies that you have in place today? Who are the stakeholders that are most interested in the decisions that you're making? And do you have a benchmark set of decision rules that you'll want to incorporate into your analysis? So as it relates to the project design, one of the most important things is getting the right target variables on the data set. These are often called dependent outcome or performance variables, so I'll use the term performance outcome. These are usually one or more variables that are important to your business. They can either be used as a target or for measurement. Here's some example potential target outcomes. Things like maximum delinquency or good bad might be interesting over potentially different time periods. You might also have things like response or sales, activation. It really depends on the decision that you're making and what's important to assess the appropriateness of that decision. You'll want to measure the performance over the appropriate length of time. Some decisions, such as response, have a very short time window. Others, such as whether or not you're booking the account, might have a longer time window. Often I get questions about what's the best time window to use, and what I usually recommend is take a look at different outcomes if you have that data available. So if your question is, should I measure good bad over 6 months, 3 months, 12 months? Go ahead and calculate it and include all those variables on the data set, and then you'll be able to answer that question in the course of the analysis. In terms of predictive information, these are often called independent variables, decision keys, or predictors, so I'll use the term predictors. You'll want to include all the variables that you use today to make decisions, all of your policy rules, other segmenters that might be of interest such as region or portfolio, all of the scores that you're currently using or thinking about using, and then other predictors that might be available. In addition to what you're already using today, think about what else is available and already implemented on your system. That would be the easiest and cheapest thing to implement. In some cases, you might have new scores that you're considering using, and a decision tree is a really effective way to assess the best way to use those new scores. You might have variables that have more detail than what you're doing today. So for example, you might have a credit bureau score, but now you have available attributes, and that would be an interesting analysis to do in decision trees. One of the more common applications of an analysis might be you have a new data source and you're trying to evaluate whether or not it gives you lift over an existing set of variables. Decision trees is a good application to analyze that as well. So once you have the appropriate data set up, you're ready to begin your decision tree project. The FICO Analytic Cloud Analytic community can help you to design the best data set to make the most productive use of your analysis time.